This podcast is for anyone tired of sitting on the couch watching fucking Netflix. For anyone who wants to know how to break the 9-to-5 slave life. For anyone who wants to be better tomorrow than they are today. I want to help you learn how to break the cycle. This is your story, and you have to write it. Come on in. We're just getting started. Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to the Getting Started podcast. As always, I am your host, Sean Busters. I have a very, very special guest with me today, Miss Carmen Ventrucci Peterson. Carmen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Sean, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. So, as Sean said, my name is Carmen Ventrucci. I am the founder and creator of my company called True Sisu Life. And I hold the belief that we all have the power to design the lives we want to live. Like, no matter who we are, no matter where we come from, no matter what we're dealt in life, we can all take action to make the changes we want so we can go and do what we want. And I've been fortunate enough to work with Sean on a couple projects here. I've seen him make tremendous progress over the past few months. He is doing awesome. And so I am so happy to be here.
Thank you. Yes, we have worked together. It's been a whole lot of fun. And that's why I wanted to get you here on the podcast because I've learned a lot from you. I don't know if you've learned anything from me, at least nothing improvement wise anyway. I'm sure you've learned some wild, crazy things.
I've learned something from everybody. So you are included in that.
Awesome. All right, so let's kind of dig in a little bit. Let's start a little bit with your background. Like, how was Carmen growing up? I mean, did you come from like, a well-off family? Were you like mid-America suburbia, or were you kind of like, real poor back out in the sticks a little bit? Like how did you come up as far as like your childhood went and the situation that surrounded you, I guess?
Awesome. And so actually, I am pretty satisfied with my childhood, I'm happy to say. So we did grow up in suburbia. My dad was a dentist, and so he had his own practice. He was an entrepreneur. He started his own practice and did very well with that. My mom was a teacher and stayed home with myself and my two sisters. So I'm the oldest of three girls. So growing up, that's what we had. Kind of an interesting fact. Both my parents are only children. So we have no aunts and no uncles and no cousins. And so we had a very small, close-knit family growing up. And, we played a lot of sports. We kind of did everything that your typical kids do. We were actually, so I grew up in the 80s, right? And girls' sports were kind of starting to gain a little more momentum back then. I mean, now they're just everywhere, which is awesome. And so even though my dad didn't have any boys, we were kind of raised like boys. And so we know how to drive a stick. We know how to use tools. We know how to play hockey. Like, we didn't grow up on a farm, but if you gave us a tractor, we would figure it out. Okay, so as far as your typical stereotypes, we were raised to be very independent ladies, and we know how to take care of ourselves. And really fun childhood. I mean, we did family vacations. Our grandparents lived up I'm from Minnesota, by the way. Our grandparents lived up in northern Minnesota, which is just like in the sticks, and it is a lot of fun. So yeah, that was my childhood. Both my sisters and I are very intelligent. We all did very well in school. We are all college graduates. I have an undergrad degree in biomedical engineering, which I don't use at all. And I have an MBA as well, which I do use a little bit. So my joke is that I can't engineer my way out of a box. And however, it helped me learn process and systems very well. And those I just see, I can map those out in my mind. And so that's my background a little bit. So I'm not using it in the traditional way, but all those college recruiters tell you you're going to do with an engineering degree and an MBA degree. I found different ways to apply them to my own business.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Now, as far as, growing up and going through school and all that, like, at what age did you really start working, and like, what was your first job?
I actually had my first job at the age of 14. And my dad's buddy bought a golf course. It was a little local par 3 public golf course. And I worked there. And so I would work at the cashier. We had a little kitchen. I would, help people get their Coke or whatever and their food, their soda. And so that was my first job, and I actually worked there for 3 years. And so I've been employed or working since I was 14 years old, which I know is a little young. Again, I grew up in the 80s, and
Well, and
it's
times were
how I'm
different back
wired.
then.
Times were different back then. So, but yeah, I loved it. Minimum wage was like $4.25 an hour or something like that back then. And I think I made over $1,000 that first summer. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Like that was a lot of money to what, a 14-year-old. That was a
Oh
ton of
yeah,
money.
definitely.
Mhm.
And I can relate to that because I started my first job washing dishes at like 13, somewhere around there.
Mhm.
My mom worked at a restaurant, and she was like, "Hey, you want to make some extra spending money? You can buy some CDs or whatever." Yeah, sure. I'm talking about CDs like everybody knows what CDs are anymore.
Yeah. Like the
Uh,
music,
yeah, yeah.
the music.
Um, but all right. So you did that, and you go through school. You graduate. You went to college. Where'd you go to college at?
I went to the University of Minnesota.
Okay, and you said you had an undergrad degree in biomedical engineering.
Biomedical engineering. I was really smart once upon a time. I could do really, really tough equations, man. Big
What
math equations.
what even led you to that path to begin with?
So I've always been really sciencey, for lack of a better term, right? I've like math and science. I can do it, no problem. And so, and like back in the 90s, now we've graduated to the 90s, engineering was huge. Like everybody was going to school to be an engineer. And biomedical engineering was kind of up and coming. And I used to want to be a doctor. And I also really love math and science. And I decided, well, this degree allows me to combine the medical side with the math and science side. So let's go for it. And the intended purpose of a biomedical engineer, if you're talking to college recruiters and such, is they want you to go design medical devices. So whether it's a pacemaker, a hip implant, it could be, adhesive for bandages. There's all sorts of applications out there for biomedical engineers. I went straight into business out of college instead. I started doing consulting for hospitals on medical equipment. So my customers were really small hospitals. They're called critical access hospitals. So
Mhm.
they're out in the sticks essentially. And it'd be like, all right, let's go shopping for a CT scanner, guys. You guys need a new one. No, you don't need that fancy one over there. You're not doing those procedures. You need this one over here. And so that was a much more consulting role than a hardcore engineering role. But I was able to use my engineering knowledge, and I was able to speak to customers in a way that they understood what I was saying.
Okay, cool, cool. Now, the is that what led you into basically corporate America? Because I know your big motto is you're the corporate dropout. You teach other people how to be the
Yes.
corporate
Mhm,
dropout.
mhm.
So is that what led you into corporate America? Because I know I've
Yes. So, yep,
go ahead.
that was my first job out of college. I actually had it lined up for me after college. And so, Sean, it's really interesting because I didn't realize I was an entrepreneur until like I had like a midlife crisis almost, right? So in my 30s, I realized that, oh, there's other things you can do to make money besides working for somebody else. You can work for yourself. This is amazing. And so I was actually in the corporate world for 16 years before what I call my dropout date, where I dropped out of corporate America to become a full-time entrepreneur. And now it wasn't just like a cutoff, right? I was ramping things up before I left so I could leave as comfortably as possible. And there's always going to be some scary moments in there and some fear because it's different, and that's okay. So yeah, I was in the corporate world for 16 years working with the medical industry in some way, shape, or form. I was never a healthcare provider per se, but I worked with a lot of hospitals over my time there.
Okay, now obviously you did very well in corporate America. What was it that drew you into the entrepreneurial journey?
There's a couple things. So number one, there was a lifestyle component to it. And so just to give you a little more background about me, I have 6 children and a husband and a dog. And so as you can imagine, there's some logistical challenges with managing a household of that size and complexity. And so the more kids I acquired, as time went by, the more and more I wanted my time back and a little more control over my schedule. And now my job was actually pretty flexible, which is awesome, right? They did a pretty good job of work from home arrangements and such. It still wasn't enough. I still wanted more control over my lifestyle and my schedule. Like today, it's Tuesday when we're recording this episode. Tuesday is date day for my husband and I. So we make a point every Tuesday to go out to lunch together and just have some fun. Instead of there's no reason date night has to be at night. It can be during lunch on Tuesdays. And so things like that. The other thing is I kind of finally figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I couldn't find that perfect match at my current company. And so I decided to just go out and create it on my own. And so what that is, as you mentioned, I help other people drop out of corporate America, either scale up a business they already had or start one from scratch so that they can embrace the entrepreneurial life full time. And really it's coaching. And so I was doing some coaching in my corporate life. I was doing that for about 5 years. And that was the part of my job I loved. I did very well at that. My people I coached loved me. And I wanted to find a way to do that. Go ahead.
Now, what were you coaching them to do while you were
And
in corporate
so,
America? Were you still doing the
yes,
medical consulting, or were you moved on to other aspects?
a little different. It was still in the healthcare space. I was what is called a Lean Six Sigma black belt. So an LSS black belt. If you're not familiar with that, it's basically a methodology where you drive cost and savings out of processes or products. And so I would coach other people on that methodology. I would have, like, as the black, so they kind of model it after martial arts. There's black belts and there's green belts, and there's a few other things too. The black belts would coach the green belts, who would have smaller projects. The black belts would have bigger projects. So it's a continuous improvement methodology, which I still apply a lot of that methodology working with my clients now, because there's nothing wrong with continuous improvement. We all need it. And so that's what I was coaching people on. And it was so much fun to just help them shine and, just see them grow and mature during their projects. That was a blast. That was extremely rewarding to me.
Awesome. All right. So you're married, you've got the kids, you're not satisfied with the corporate world. You've got certain aspects you like, certain you don't. Did you have any savings in the bank where when you went to go finally turn in that final pink slip, here you go, I'm done, I'm out, like, where were you sitting financially? Did you have, say 3 months saved up, 6 months, a year? Did you have everything in place to where say if the entrepreneurial journey didn't work out, were you going to be okay for a good while off, or were you kind of just sort of like, this has to work, or period, this just has to work?
A little bit of both. And so with our situation, I've been investing in real estate since 2003. And so there was one particular asset I had where I realized if I sold it, I would make more money than I would working the rest of the year. So the plan happened where we sold that house and we made more, like I said, we made more money, and we were able to live off that for a good 6 or 7 months. And what that did was allow me to get things ramped up. Let's make our mistakes early on. Let's do the pivots in the business that we need to make. And that floated us for a good 6 or 7 months. And so my situation was a little different. So this brings up a good point, Sean, that I believe in multiple streams of income. And I know you do as well. And yes, I could have held on to that particular asset longer. That's why you do things like that. So you can make other moves in other areas of your life.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's like a little bit of a safety net too. So that house, that particular asset, was worth more to me selling it than it was holding on to it longer at that point in time. So that was the plan. That's what we did, and it worked out according to plan. It took maybe 3 weeks or so longer to sell than I initially thought, which is fine. That's part of the real estate game, but it worked out.
Awesome. All right. So now when you dropped out, you're done. It's now Carmen time. What channels did you start going through to get started with this journey? I mean, did you know right out the jump exactly what it was you wanted to do, or did you get scammed into any kind of like programmings about like, life coaches or, hippie fake gurus and stuff like that?
Hippie fake gurus. No.
Hey,
So
they're out there just as well as I do.
know they're out there. Yes, I get messages from them every day. I did hire a mentor. Okay, so I did hire somebody to help me do a couple things. My digital marketing, right? Someone does that for me. I provide content. They take care of the rest. I hired another coach who has built a program similar to mine, and she has helped me build up my business. And so that's one piece of advice, is that so this is not just building a business. This could be anything. This could be losing weight. This could be, anything, any situation, even if you're in the corporate world. you can hire a coach. And somebody has already done everything pretty much. So if you have a challenge you are trying to overcome or a problem you are trying to solve, absolutely go find somebody who's already solved it. And if you want to hire them as a mentor, go for it. Like like I mentioned, I'm a real estate investor. I have a real estate mentor who's completely separate from my business. Like I have a health coach. I'm not going to have my health coach tell me how to run my business because it's not quite the same thing. I'm not going to have my real estate investor mentor tell me how to be healthy. Not the same thing. And so I've hired about 5 different specialists or mentors over the past 2 years so that I can do well at what I need to do well at. And so I would much rather hack their systems, hack their mind and their processes, apply them to my situation, and take off faster and accelerate faster.
Awesome. I know we share a couple of the same kind of coaches and mentors. So now, how long did it take you to realize that you needed a mentor, and how long did it take you to find that mentor? And what were the, I guess, deciding factors that kind of pushed you towards one or the other, especially out in the beginning? I mean, a lot of people out there, they get started, they don't know what they're doing. They get to a point where they're, all right, well, I need a mentor. And they go out and they just, whoever has the flashiest cars and the flashiest, whatever they go for. What was it that attracted you to start your first few mentors?
That's a really good question. And so there's a couple things. Number one, I believe in the energy that people give off. And so if I was getting a good energy from them, that's like the first test, right? If I don't get a good energy from you, next. There's plenty of mentors out there. There's no shame in saying next. The next is their messaging. So if they are sending out the right messaging, I know they are speaking directly to me and that they can help me with my particular situation. And they are a specialist for me, not necessarily a generalist, a specialist for me. So I pay really close attention to the messaging of these mentors. And if it strikes a chord with me, then I'm going to start paying more attention. One mentor in particular that you and I share, Sean, I knew personally, and I've seen her grow, and I've seen the things that she does work, and she's very upfront about what has worked and what has not worked. And I really appreciate that because, as I mentioned before, I coached on continuous improvement. I am all for putting something out there, making a mistake, learning from it, changing it around, and putting it out there again and seeing how much better it works. And I really appreciated that method of how she worked to build her business. And so that resonated with me quite well. And so overall, do I vibe with their energy? Number one. Number two, is their messaging on point for me? Do I feel like they're speaking directly to me? And then number three, testimonials. Ask for references. Talk to other people who have worked with them. Absolutely. Oh, and number four, this is a total end. Once you do decide on a mentor, get it in writing. So know what you expect them to deliver, know what you have to do to learn from them. Because I've heard from so many people in all aspects of coaching and mentorship, oh, I thought this program was going to do this for me and it didn't do that for me. And then they're just dissatisfied because they might not necessarily have been paying attention at the beginning or understood what the program is all about. So get it in writing. Understand what you are getting whenever you sign up with the quote unquote gurus. And if you don't understand it, and they're not able to clarify it for you or not willing to clarify it for you, just move on.
Excellent. Yeah, I never really thought about getting it in writing before. I know before I kind of settled on the mentors that I've got now, I delved into a few odd and in different places. And I think a lot of it was partially me to blame, partially them to blame, jumping in blind, not knowing nothing, and then not paying attention to the fact that it wasn't being explained to me the way it needed to be explained. And I like the way you definitely put that, the messaging and how, were they speaking to you? I think a lot of people out there find they go out and they find, so-and-so is using such and such for this mentor and they're making, 6-7 figures a year. Well, I'm going to go to them. Well, they go to them and they're no, they don't see no results.
Yeah.
And it's just because they're following the flash and they're not getting that message in, and it's just not working for them personally. All right. So about how long were you on this journey before you started really starting to see some success? And then how much longer after that did it take for you to realize that this was really working, that the success was happening, and that this was definitely the right path that you had chosen to go on?
Good question. So let me see. I left my job in June, and then June, July, August, September. It took me about 5 months before things started really clicking and humming along. And then things started just growing quite well from October. And so it took me a good 5 months. Now, during those 5 months, I probably lost a good 3 weeks because I was just not holding myself accountable in the right way. So, I'm to blame. I can slap myself across the face and move on. And, it took a few months. It took some trial and error. Is my messaging resonating with people? Another thing I learned, like you, I do most of my marketing on social media. I really do have to post like 3 times a day. When I do that, I get more engagement and I get more people and I get more reach. It's learning you're learning new skill sets. So corporate employees make wonderful entrepreneurs. They have so many skill sets that are transferable to running your own business. You know how to deal with people, you know how to manage several priorities, and you know how to prioritize, right? For me, a skill set I had to learn was the digital marketing piece, because in my former life as a corporate employee, non-existent for me, not even in my realm of what I needed to focus on daily. And so, yes, you have skill sets that are absolutely necessary. You also need to add a couple. And so that took me, part of that 5 months of really getting things ramped up was learning some of those new skill sets I had to learn. So when you're thinking of starting your own business or thinking of leaving your corporate job, be sure to account for some time for that before you are 100% on your own or 100% ready to really ramp up.
Okay. So then at what point did it really click that this was the rest of your life? That corporate America was no longer even like an afterthought or an option or any of that, that it was going to be the way you wanted to do things from here on out?
So that's a really good question.
Or have you even reached that point yet?
No. So let me back up before my dropout date a little bit. So about a year and a half before I officially left the corporate world, I started thinking, you know what, there might be something better for me. And so I started looking at other companies in the corporate world. And then I was really seeing that switching titles or switching a company wouldn't solve the root cause of the problem. It would just be same shit, different day, different company. So I had a plan to drop out of corporate America on December 31st, 2019. We had a terrible instance in my family where one of my sisters had a massive stroke. This was back in March last year, so it's been almost a year, and we almost lost her. Like huge, huge is an understatement. Huge stroke, and this happened 9 days after she had her second baby girl.
Ooh.
And still kind of tough to talk about sometimes. So what that made me realize was, all right, close call, really close call here. Why am I wasting my time? I started thinking about things differently and seeing things really differently. That's when I got the idea, like, hey, if I sell this one house, I'm going to make more money and I can still support my family for the next 6 or 7 months. I'm going to do that because I don't want to be here anymore. And then we had some other stuff going on in the family. I'm not going to get into it. There was other medical stuff and everything, but I had like half a dozen situations staring me in the face, reminding me that we are not guaranteed tomorrow. So why am I taking 9 months to leave my corporate job? I can do this in June. And so I rearranged things, tweaked my plan, and I accelerated my dropout day plan by 7 months. And so I was thinking about it for a while. It took that event to act as this major catalyst in the way I think and the way I prioritize and the way I design my life in order for me to really kick it in gear and get really serious about it.
Cool. I mean, it's not cool, that you had all that going on, but
yeah,
the fact that it really kind of jump started you and said, all right, it's time to overdrive and let's go. That's really awesome.
Yeah, overdrive's a good word for it. That describes it perfectly.
All right, so let's talk about, some new things you got going on. Obviously, you've got the True Sisu Life, the Corporate Dropout Program. You have the Mindset, Action, Passion, Map to Design Your Life Facebook group.
Yes. Map for Successful Life Design.
That's it.
That's my awesome Facebook group. You guys should come find us.
It is
Google
awesome
it on
group,
Facebook.
guys. I'll make
search
sure
it on Facebook.
I will make sure to include that in the podcast notes later on. Everybody's listening. Make sure you check those out and get in that group, because Carmen has some amazing, amazing content she's always sharing. Now, you have a podcast show now, or an interview show?
I do. I have an interview show. The interviews air live in my group we just mentioned, and the show is called the Sisu Spirit. And you guys have heard the word Sisu a few times, so let me just explain what that is. It's S-I-S-U. It is a Finnish term. We are a Finnish descent on my mom's side of the family, and it basically means grit, determination, and tenacity, no matter the obstacle, no matter the odds. And so we always grew up knowing what this word meant. And with the advent of my sister's stroke, this is definitely a word we apply to her, because she is kicking ass against all odds. Like, there is no question. She should get a cape with like the word Sisu on it and be like a superhero. So the name, I mean, that is our brand. Sisu is our brand. And it's a little bit of a call of respect. That's not the word I'm looking for. It's a dedication kind of to my sister, having that. And so the show is called the Sisu Spirit. So I interview people who have shown tremendous Sisu at some point in their lives and just overcome some amazing things. And regardless of what the world throws at them, they're still out there living the life they want to live. And so my goal for that show is to inspire others to take that action in their life that they need to take so it can be better for them, whatever better is for them. We're all going to have our own definition of what we want to design our lives. And so, yeah, it's an awesome show. I've interviewed coaches. I've interviewed people who have overcome major medical issues. I've interviewed, oh my gosh, just amazing, amazing people. And it's so much fun because it's live, so you never know what's going to happen.
Oh, exactly. All right, so tell us a little bit more about this Corporate Dropout Program. I personally know quite a bit more about it, but for everybody out there listening, give them kind of just a brief summary of what it is, what it entails, and what it can lead to.
All right. So I basically help transform corporate employees into entrepreneurs. So this program is perfect for you if you are in the corporate world and you want to leave. And it's good if you want to start a business from scratch, or if you already have a side hustle or a side gig of some sort and you want to scale it up and really relaunch it almost, so that you can generate that revenue so you can leave your corporate job. And I do this with keeping in mind that we all have people to take care of in our lives. Like, I had 6 kids and I was the breadwinner in my family and I was able to figure it out. I want you to do it in a way that is respectful to your financial situation. And so there's a couple key components of it. We write a business plan. Now, okay, if you want to have a business and you're not willing to write a business plan, don't bother starting your business. All right? Because your business plan is going to give you so much clarity on what your business actually is. If you need investors or seed money, they're going to want to see it. And it's just going to help explain to you and your perfect clients what your business is. So we go through that. It's a lot of business basics as well. So, I mentioned I have the MBA, and there's just a lot of business basics that people might not necessarily know. And so I teach you, this is how you read a P&L. This is what a P&L is, profit and loss statement, for those of you who might not know. This is the story numbers can tell you. And it's everything. It's your corporate dropout date plan. It's a launch plan for your business, right? A lot of people think, oh, I just throw up a website and people come flocking to it. And that's not really how it happens. You got to work the market. And so we help you figure that out. The thing I'm most proud of, though, in my corporate dropout plan or my corporate dropout program is what I call Clarity Corner. And so this is the first thing I make people go through, regardless if they have a business started or not. Because what Clarity Corner helps you do, it helps you get extremely clear on who you are, what your business is, what your clients' transformations are going to be. So essentially why they're buying from you, and who your perfect client is, or your avatar. Because without that, I mean, remember when I was saying I look for the messaging in the mentors I hire? So without that, your messaging will not speak directly to your perfect clients. Yeah, it's going to go right over their head and you're going to miss them, right? They're not going to realize that you were talking to them. So that's why I make people go through Clarity Corner first. And I actually have it as a standalone product if people want it as a standalone product without everything else. And so like Clarity Corner is awesome. The corporate dropout program is awesome. You can do it just by yourself, or you can do it with coaching from me if you want. It just, it's up to you what level of accountability you need help with. Completely up to you. So we've had a lot of great success with it. People love it so far. And it's helping people design their lives, which is what I'm all about.
Awesome. Awesome. So now the final masterpiece question before we wrap things up. And I ask this of everybody. What is the best piece of advice you can offer for those out there who are skeptical about all of this, the lifestyle, the coaching, all of that, but they know that their current lifestyle just isn't working anymore? What value can you impart on someone who's in a situation where they work all week just to make ends meet and have no idea how to begin to break free of the typical just 9-to-5 slave life that so many people get caught up in?
Okay. Can I give 2 pieces of advice? I have 2.
Have at it.
Okay. Number 1.
The floor is yours.
Number 1, think about what's going to happen if you don't make a change. So if you continue to be in that situation Sean just described, you're working the 9 to 5, it's not even 9 to 5 anymore. It's like 9 to 10 p.m., right? If you're working that daily grind and you don't do anything to change it, what's going to happen? Can you handle that, right? And the answer is going to be different for everybody, but think about what that means for you. If you don't take action, what will happen? Now, advice number 2, take a small action. Baby steps lead to more baby steps. Success leads to more success. So you don't have to eat the whole elephant all at once. Break it down, chunk it down into baby steps. Just start with something. Like, let's take the business plan, for example. You might not have it all figured out. Start with page 1, paragraph 1, or slide 1. Start there. Because what you're going to find, that's the toughest. I mean, this is why it's called the Getting Started podcast, right? The toughest part is getting started. So just start with something and make it small. And you're going to find as you go along, you're going to gain more momentum. And once you get that momentum, oh, baby, you're going to be on fire. It's going to be awesome. So again, first piece of advice, what's going to happen if you don't make a change? You have to be able to live with that. Number 2, start somewhere, start small. And then that momentum will build as you go.
Great advice. Great advice. Absolutely wonderful. Carmen, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here on the show. I look forward to working with you more in the future. I cannot wait until you've got the whole Clarity Corner ready to rock and roll. And
it's ready to rock and roll. I can drop a link in your podcast if you want.
Oh, yes, definitely. Shoot me that link and I will throw it in the show notes and we will start throwing people that direction.
Awesome.
Pleasure to have you here, Carmen. And I hope you have a great, wonderful rest of the day. And everybody, tune in next time for the Getting Started podcast. And we'll have another great guest. And who knows what might happen.